our very next speaker. He is the co-founder. You saw him for a split second, but you'll see him in full screen in just a second. The Chief Commercial Officer at Late Data, Snowflake EMEA Partner of the Year. He has worked in data space for 30 years, starting with Cognos in the 90s. Late Data was founded in 2018 by data visionaries with an average of 20 years of experience in data ecosystems. They're dedicated to unlocking the value of data and maximizing business analytics potential. It's all about the business, as Mikiko just said. Today, Chris is going to talk to us about the modern data stack 2.0 versus the postmodern data stack. Is it the same or is it different? All right, now I'm going to go ahead and bring Chris up on our stage.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the intro. Good to see you both. You introed the business better than I could anyway, so I can skip over one of my slides much quicker now anyway. So let me share my screen.
As you're sharing your screen, I'll go hop over to the comments quickly. So Dustin's saying, wait, who was that? Val says she saw you, Chris. that was funny. So Fred, direct to us from the mean data streets. Yes, that's where Chris is coming from. We got your slides up. And
thank you.
Ravit and I will hop off the stage to let you take this away. All right, Chris?
Thank you very much. Okay, so after that lovely intro, so modern data stack 2.0 versus postmodern data stack. Is it the same? Is it different? Have we really moved on that far that we need a new name? So Kate stole some of the thunder there, really, but I think she's read this out for me. But I think the only thing I'll add is it is all about the business value. It is all about using the technologies to provide business services, business capabilities to ultimately add business value. And business value can be described in many ways, but effectively increasing your bottom line, making more profit, or increasing your brand, or your expanding into other regions. So anything that helps your business move forward is what you should be using the technology for, rather than buying technology and finding a business reason for it. And we like to demonstrate a lot of this stuff. We've got a little innovation lab where we build lots of frameworks or demonstration of best practice. One of them is called Adapt, which is focused on advertising and analytics data. We can take all your social feeds into one place, map it into your web traffic, and then demonstrate with a good data model what can be achieved. So a little bit more about what we do, then we'll get straight into it. We focus on business strategy, data management, data security, a big focus on data engineering and data ops, analytics and machine learning as well. The whole shebang, so to speak. And a little bit about our recent awards. So we're Snowflake Elite Partners. We won Snowflake Partner of the Year for EMEA, and won Emerging Partner of the Year for ThoughtSpot. It was a busy last 12 months. A little bit about me. So I think, the mean data streets. So I think, as Kate said, I've been working in this industry for 30 odd years, started at Cognos in the 90s, my first ever job, and just love data. And some things I read, and one of them triggered this, the modern data stack, being dead. So I've called myself a defender of the modern data stack. And some of the things that have been forgotten out there is data modeling, which is a big gap in a lot of platforms that have been built, and without good data modeling, you can't really get good business value. So I tell my stories from the mean data streets I live and work. So straight into it. So modern data stack 2.0 versus modern data stack. So there's been a lot of talk on LinkedIn, bad press of why the modern data stack is not working, what problems are with it. The modern data stack's dead. There was talk of the postmodern data stack. So I started asking, what if it's a postmodern data stack, what's really changed? And if so, what will replace it? Because a postmodern data stack is a really lame name. If anything, I coined 2.0, but we can discuss whether it really does need a name. It does need a new name. Has things changed too much? Has things changed that much? And back to that business value, we've had many names for the business capability that provides that ability to give business value from your data, because that's what the technology is there for. And each of them was modern at its time. You had the data warehouse back in the when I first started. You had big data platforms, and then we've had this modern data stack. But why was the term modern data stack even born? And have we moved on so far from when it was coined that we need a new name? So a little bit about the evolution. As I say, all of these capabilities or business capabilities were modern at their time, and in the beginning, in the 90s, the de facto was Oracle for your database, Informatica for your ETL, Cognos for your BI. It could have been business objects back then. But then after that, the bigger vendors started to do a bit of consolidation, and you had the Oracle had their whole suite, which was Exadata for its database, ODI for its ETL, OBI, which it bought from Siebel for its reporting. And each of the other vendors had a similar one. IBM had its Netezza, its Data Stage, and it acquired Cognos. And you had SAP, which had its Sybase, Bodhi, and its analytics offering as well. And SQL Server had its whole suite of DTS, SSIS, SSAS, SSRS, and all the others, but a single stack to provide all of your reporting solutions from a single vendor. The problem with this, it was always on premise. It was very expensive. It was reserved for the big players. Not everyone had access to invest in the hardware and the teams to build these things. It was hard to scale unless you had a lot of money. And ultimately, it required a large budget with a lot of planning to go and justify the need for getting that budget. So then we moved on into the big data platform era. So I call it the open source bubble. I mean, it's brought us lots of many things, but it promised us a lot more than it gave us. So it was all about big data then. It was all about every Apache framework. And then you had the enterprise companies coming in. So MapR, Hortonworks, and Cloudera, all making enterprise versions of it. And I think only Cloudera, now they're merged with Hortonworks, are the only ones that exist providing that. It could be provided on premise. It was on the cloud. It was on commodity hardware. It was open source, but it had unpredictable performance. And it required an army of engineers. And this is where engineers really were engineers before. In the beginning, they were ETL developers. They were more business focused. It wasn't all about the technology as much then. All these products had GUIs to allow you to operate them, apart from the database. But it was relatively more business focused. Whereas where you started having to build your Hadoop platform, your clusters, and your Spark and everything, it required very high technical skills. And the world moved a little bit further away from the business, which wasn't a good thing, because ultimately everything is for business value. So I think rest in peace, big data platforms. We moved on to a new era, the modern data stack. It was born based on the rise of the cloud software as a service offerings. It started from 2010 onwards. We had a boom of different vendors, starting with, I think, BigQuery, Snowflake and Redshift following close behind them. But it opened up a whole new ecosystem of other vendors, new players that could move quicker, that could provide offerings on these new players, which weren't it weren't the big four that was before. It wasn't IBM, it wasn't Sybase, it wasn't SAP, it wasn't Oracle, because they didn't really want to work with Snowflake, Redshift, or BigQuery. So they didn't fill that gap. Lots of other vendors filled that gap. Taking a lot of the good things from the data warehouse and also era, and taking a lot of the best bits from the big data world, of a lot of that CI/CD and semi-structured data and continuous DevOps methodologies as well, was all essences we took from that era and took it into the modern data stack to some levels of success in some areas, but that's evolution, and I think we're still going through that. Do we actually need a new name? Sometimes, if your modern data stack hasn't gone very well, you need new budget. Maybe you want to call it something different. If you call it a post-modern data stack, maybe you're going to get the budget for it. But I don't think the technology have moved on that far that we we need a new name. I think it just needs to evolve. So let's look at the timeline of the history. And I haven't put every single vendor down here because it would just take too long. But I've tried to break it down. And there's a picture in a minute of the diagram I've got of what I think makes up a modern data platform, modern data stack in a simplistic view. I don't want to add too much; it would get too busy. But there's storage, compute, there's visualization, there's a need to ingest, ELT or ETL, and orchestration, and now more recently reverse ETL, and just companies that are focusing just on the TL. So starting in 2010, we had the BigQuery came out. The storage and compute from other vendors followed soon after in 2012. We had Looker and Chartio providing that SaaS-based visualization capabilities. We had the likes of there we go. We have Matillion, Fivetran providing that ingest capabilities. Then the ETL, or as what it was originally called, ETL or ELT now, depending on where the load is performed. We've had a load of those vendors come in providing that capability, but everything needs to be orchestrated. And with the release of Airflow, we've had that ability, and then following on from that, Dagster and some other ones. Prefect was mentioned earlier, and there's a few others. And then the birth of reverse ETL, they came along. The late 2018, we started getting reverse ETL capabilities. I think the reverse ETL was born out of the data platform, the modern data stack becoming more core part of the platform. So having that full life cycle of having that data come through, be processed within your data platform or your modern data stack, and then be used by your CRM system or for downstream decision processes for your e-commerce platform. And then the TL part. So what DBT brought, in 2016 and Coalesce has simplified more recently, was that ability for developers to perform transformation code in a way that can be checked in, checked out, as you would do in a DevOps way, which really embraced that data ops methodology. So as you see, the modern data stack's been around 10, 11 years, but it's evolved. Lots of parts of the puzzle have been created on that journey, and looking and reviewing what you've used and how you've used it, there was a choice. You made those technology decisions on the way because that was all as available. But I think simplification is the future, or the next stage, or the next year, if anything. So let's say that. So what went wrong with the modern data stack? And I think we went a bit decentralized crazy, and a little bit too agile. I think I did a post recently about unless you've got a data strategy in place that is aligned to your business value, aligned to your goals of your organization, and you've set down the journey you need to go on. If you expect all your teams to work agile and all go in the same direction, or all actually achieve the collective goal of adding that business value, they're not going to. They're going to. I think earlier on that the lady that was on, they're going to build their own framework for something because they liked it. They like developing something, and they won't want to support it. They'll choose multiple technology choices that don't integrate very well. So I think we do need to decentralize, but it's where we do it and having the right guardrails in place. And I think the modern data stack allows people to spin up different parts of the platform very easy in different departments without any central governance or decision process. And I don't want to get back. We don't need to go back down to the ivory tower enterprise architects that you have to go through to make any small decision. But you need to know, you need to know when to allow autonomy within a department and when to have centralization. And it may move over time, and then always reviewing that to see if it's the right approach for your company's maturity and where we're on the journey. I think the gentleman at the beginning was talking about maturity frameworks. We do something similar for delivery frameworks of how mature you are in your on your journey of delivering value from either a data ops perspective, from a machine learning perspective, from a data insight perspective, from a FinOps perspective, from a data ops perspective. I might have said it twice. There's 6 different lenses where we can look at it. And I think the other thing that I like to say is we went a bit consumption crazy. Right, we didn't realize that the cost of what we were running actually had to be paid. The cloud fairy did not pay the bills, and the lack of FinOps or financial views of what's going on, and rechargeability of any of that cost to the associated business units wasn't happening. So it was all coming out of a central pot, your OPEX pot, and no one really knew, why are you getting the value from that money? Is someone spinning up a 6XL to do a workload in Snowflake, or equivalent in BigQuery, or leaving a Redshift instance open when it's never been up and running, when it's never been used? If you don't understand or not accountable for the cost, you're not gonna do things in the best way. And something that it got me creating the hashtag Bring Back Data Modeling was, people blaming the modern data stack for not having data modeling. It's not the modern data stack's fault you didn't have data modeling. It's because you forgot to do it. So making sure that you have got some good data modeling practices in place, some standards, allow other teams to operate on their own, but with using your best practice. Have a center of excellence that shows how people do this. Use a product like SQL DBM or other products that can centrally control your models, but also drive automation. I think the next thing that keeps coming out now is data contracts, which again, I was doing data contracts back in the original era, the basic era. You wanted to minimize downstream impact if you made a change. So you presented a contract which was aligned to a data model that was maintained. And again, that's been missed in the modern data stack. So I've seen situations where people are creating a table for each report, and yet there's no consistency in the values, maybe, or opportunity for you to get mistakes in them as well. And I think the other one, and there's probably a few others as well, but audit, logging, and monitoring. So it's now called Observability, which is a cool name, but we forgot about putting that, and it links onto that consumption piece, because if we're not accountable for the spend, and we're not able to monitor it, and we're not able to evidence it, we're not able to learn by that and optimize. And the observability is quite a good term to look into that, and I think it's a good thing that we're putting that in, even though it's nothing new. It's just it just wasn't in place in many modern data stacks. So it's creating an opportunity for products out there to solve that problem. So, and I like to always not use vendor names for what you're actually doing. And the modern data stack back at the beginning, and I could even go back to the original, the basic era. All you need to do is ingest data. You need to orchestrate that ingest and the associated transformations, store the data, and perform computations on it to allow that data, or with that data being data modeled correctly, for it to be displayed by visualizations, have a feature model for ML, or an extract capability for a data delivery via an SFTP or whatever was available back in 2012. We didn't have reverse ETL as much, running out to an S3 bucket, or whatever that was. And then you would have audit, logging, and monitoring. I think at the beginning, probably the SIMs were the main thing. Security event integration monitoring. There wasn't much outside of your CloudWatch, and not all of the products fitted into that. So that there was a gap there, some capabilities. And then CI/CD, some of the components supported that back in 2012. Not everything. If it required proprietary storage for it to store its metadata, it may not work with a CI/CD route. So it didn't. The modern data stack around then wasn't embracing data ops back then. And if we flick forward now, 10 years in the future, not much has changed. Okay, we've changed. Audit logging and monitoring is now observability. CI/CD now is data ops, and we really do have that good drive for having data ops principles, and the manifesto has been a great supporter of that. We still need to ingest the data. We still need to transform the data. I think reverse ETL has come in now. We used to deliver it before, but now there's products that specialize in it. And I think the next slide is showing that what we've been doing, we've been building on top of this modern data stack for 10 years. We keep adding extensions to it, or we're doing additional work. If we built a brand new house now, a version of this now, we'd probably use the best approach or the best building blocks out there. And whereas before we may have had to use lots of them, and we may have had 7, 8, 9 different components, maybe now you don't need as many. You can start to look at consolidation between your products. And I think this is one that I like to use, which is a bit of fun. It was a post I did. Is ETL data in, ETL data out. All right, I like Aston Martins. It's a good British car, but do you really need to have 2 products to go and do that now? All right, you may have done if your platform has evolved and you used a product for ingest, maybe Click, maybe Fivetran or something, and then after that you've used DBT, but now you've got to go and buy another tool, high touch or Census or something, to go and give that data out. There's opportunities now to look and say, right, if I'm going to put something in from scratch now, why don't I have something that's more universal? So I think the next year, if anything, it's simplification. So we need to look at all the products we're using, drive it, go back to the capabilities, go back to business services that they're doing. If you're doing that, the technologies, if there's more than one that can do that for you, especially the size of the organization, or you don't need to have the best of every single ones. I'd love to have an Aston Martin convertible and one without, but probably don't need it. So does the modern data stack need a new name? So should we call it modern data stack 2.0 or postmodern data stack? I think each era and during this period of the modern data stack, we've learned, we've improved. I don't think we need to start again and kill the modern data stack. I think for many reasons. One, we've run out of good names. We've used big data platform, we've used data warehouse, we probably used data ecosystem. It hasn't moved on enough to actually justify a new name. It's still cloud based. It's still software as a services. All we've done, we've just enhanced it in some areas. I think keeping it simple. I think the thing KISS, keep it simple, stupid is the phrase. And I think don't believe all the vendor hype. If some CEOs out there, someone's telling you the postmodern data stack, data mesh whiz bang solution, go back down to the real core components it's really doing. And if you look at it at that stage, look at it at that level, it's just enhancement. I think embracing agile. So if your modern data stack went wrong, it's just your MVP. Perform a retro, learn from the past. Have clearly defined capabilities. Look to minimize the number of moving parts of that stack. Get external advice. Read Joe's book. Fix what's broken incrementally. And I think if we do need to rename it, I prefer it to be called Modern Data Stack 2.0, but only do that if your Modern Data Stack version 1 went bad. I think if you've had quite a few bad attempts, call it Modern Data Stack 10.3 because it worked for Oracle. It was a stable version, So or patch 2 as well if you want. So I think the in summary, what I'm trying to say is that we need to just evolve. We need to look and enhance. We need to level up in gamers technology. We're looking to level up in certain areas and just increase our maturity in those areas. And until maybe we've got some quantum computing with some new total new approach, I think the modern data stack As I say, because I couldn't even think of a better name to call it at the moment. Stack does have a bit of a problem. Maybe modern data platform is the way forward, because Stack always makes you think of technologies, and a platform, it is something that's providing a service. So yeah, maybe take the votes. If anyone wants to rename it, do you want to call it modern data platform? We may do some prize for the best name that we can call it, and special prizes for good acronyms that it comes up with as well.
Wow, very cool.
I think that's a wrap, really. I mean, so thank you. I'm not too sure. I may have added to your delay problem. I'm not too sure.
No worries, Chris. I think it is super insightful, and thanks for sharing all the insights. Love the comments that came in. Obviously, well captured about the data lifecycle. Interesting evolution, Chris. Great points. Data history in one page. So thanks for that. Mike Nash has one question. I'll take this one. It's kind of interesting. What are your thoughts on data mesh? Thinking on specific domains focus.
So, and data mesh is not a product, okay? It's an approach, and anyone selling you a data mesh solution that's going to solve it all, just don't buy it from them. But before you go data mesh, if you don't have data modeling, it's going to be a data mess. So I don't know if you saw, Joe had a good guest. I can't remember the guy's name now. Vinay, someone I think maybe on there talking about it. And with the right guardrails, with the right governance in place, and with the approach of teaching all your teams to follow a certain approach, follow certain guardrails, and deliver in a certain way, data mesh can accelerate your adoption within your organization. But this is where it does link back to technologies, because you need to have the data team needs to provide the relevant services that will allow data mesh to be a success. So if you try and drive a data mesh down and drive the other way around, you need the foundations in place for it. But great question, and I'd love to talk more about data mesh another time, but I think we're behind schedule.
I think great session. Thanks a lot, Chris. Keep talking about modern data stack, or maybe if someone comes up with a new acronym, we'll definitely be taking that. So reach out to Chris. Chris, where can people reach out?
You'll find me on LinkedIn all the time, pretty much. I'm not on Substack. On Twitter I am, but I don't really monitor it. It goes out on it, but I broadcast on it at least anyway. So yeah, you'll find me on LinkedIn. Chris Tab. I think Data Tips is my the full name on there. But there's not too many of me out there, so you won't find too many Chris Tabs.
We got you, Chris. Thanks a lot for doing this.
No problem, Rabbit. Thank you.
I'll see you around.